A lot of you really liked this little monkey that I made, so today I'm going to try recreating her. Now, I will say she's probably not going to capture that exact whimsical essence of the very first one I made, but this new version definitely shows how much my sewing skills have improved, and I think that's really special. So let's get started. The intention behind this video is to get you guys started on this project yourself. So these are some of the materials you're going to need. You need stiff felt. I personally get mine from Amazon because craft store felt tends to be softer and frays faster. Next, you'll need scissors, thread, a needle, buttons or beads, fabric, and interfacing. Felt will eventually fray over time no matter what, but using stiffer felt really helps your projects last longer. Once you've gathered all your materials, you're going to need to create a stencil. Since we're making a monkey, go ahead and draw your monkey shape, the head, body, ears, whatever pieces you want. Like I mentioned earlier, this one won't look exactly like the original, but it'll definitely stay within the same style. Once your stencil is drawn, cut it out. This makes it so much easier to trace onto your felt cleanly. Once you have your stencil ready to go, now it's time to place it onto your felt and trace around it. You can use a regular pen or marker, but just know that sometimes ink can rub onto your fingers. I like to use heat erasable fabric pens. They're amazing for felt projects. Once you're completely finished with your piece, all you have to do is lightly iron it and the lines disappear like magic. For this monkey, I wanted to add fabric details. The fabric I used was pretty thin, so I added interfacing to give it support. When using fabric, you want to draw on the back side of it, just so you don't have any markings on the front. Unless you're using a heat erasable pen, then you can draw on whatever side you want. Since I'm using interfacing, I'm drawing on the back side, and it makes it so much easier and cleaner for the cut. Next, you're going to go ahead and cut your felt. I would use some good fabric scissors because this stiff felt is pretty hard to cut through in some moments. So yeah, make sure you're using pretty good scissors. If your cuts didn't come out even, just go ahead and line them up together and make sure you cut out any extra pieces, because if you leave some extra pieces on the outside, it's not going to look good when you sew it together. Then it's time to see about placement. You're going to get all your pieces together and start mapping out what you want your piece to look like. A lot of you have asked where I got my felt and my buttons from, so I'll be adding links to those in the description if you want to go ahead and purchase them yourself. If you're going to be adding some stitching details, I would highly recommend drawing it on to the fabric, just so you can stitch neatly and accurately. I forgot to mention this earlier, but you're going to need some type of glue. You can use a fabric glue or this glue that I'm currently using. It's super strong and it definitely holds together, so make sure you have some glue on hand if you want to just glue things together and not sew, because you really don't need to sew with felt. You can just glue stuff and it still looks pretty cute. If you've never used interfacing before, here's how it works. You remove the paper backing from one side and attach it to your fabric. Then, when you're ready to place it onto your felt, you remove the second paper backing and stick it down. It's repositionable at first, which is great in case you misplace something. Once you're happy with the placement, you'll want to apply heat so it permanently adheres. Next, I'll be sewing around the ears and the face, just to add the little stitching details. Whenever you're done sewing a part, you want to make sure you tie a knot in the back so that all the threads stay in place. Originally, I thought about doing a single line for the mouth, but I decided to go with 2 lines instead and added a little pink nose. After the facial details are sewn on, we can move on to the buttons. These buttons came in a little container with a bunch of different types of buttons, so I had to go through that container and find some matching buttons that were pretty close to the first monkey. If you're not sure how to sew on a button, all you need to do is poke through the fabric first, bring the needle up through the buttonhole, then back down. I usually sew through about 2 or 3 times to make sure it's secure. The same goes for beads. If the holes are small, you might need a thinner needle, and definitely stitch them at least 2 or 3 times so that they don't shift around later. I decided to add tiny eyelashes because why not? I thought they'd look super cute. So I drew them on lightly and stitched over them with pink thread. Once that was done, I ironed the piece so the fabric would fully stick, and so that my pen marks would disappear. Really quick, if you plan on using an iron, make sure that you use wax paper or something in between the felt and the iron so that the felt doesn't burn, because there is a possibility it can. And if you don't have an iron and you're using a heat erasable pen, you can also use your blow dryer if you have one. You don't need to do this step, but if you want to make your felt piece into a keychain, you're going to need to add a ring on it, or you could just cut out a piece of felt and sew it on as well. Alright, now that the face is done, it's time to assemble everything. Before stitching the body together, I almost forgot to add fabric to the back, so don't forget that step if you want a finished look on both sides. Most of the stitching I used for this project was a running stitch and a blanket stitch. To sew the body together, place the 2 felt pieces together and clip them so that they don't shift around. Then use a blanket stitch all the way around the edges. For the stuffing, you can use polyfill, or you can use cut up felt pieces that you have left over. Those are perfect for filling as well. When you're stuffing, you may need to use a pen or a pencil, whatever you have on hand, to make sure you're pushing the stuffing into the little corners of your felt piece. I forgot to mention this part, but when you're sewing the pieces together with the blanket stitch, you want to make sure you leave some open space so that you can put in your stuffing. Now it's time to attach the head. And please don't judge me. This is the one part I'm still practicing on. I've been trying to learn the ladder stitch so the stitching doesn't show, but I haven't quite mastered it yet. For now, what I do is poke the needle through the middle of the head, pull it through, then go into the middle of the body and stitch back and forth until it feels secure. Sometimes I'll wrap the thread around the neck and then tie the knot as well. Yes, it does leave visible stitches in the front, but we're going to fix that. I covered the stitching with a threaded bow, and honestly, it looks intentional and adorable. On the back, I added a little bead to cover any exposed thread as well. Problem solved. I truly love both versions of this monkey. The original has that special whimsical first creation magic, but this new one really shows how much I've improved. And I think that's such a beautiful reminder that you don't have to recreate something perfectly to see growth. I realized that I forgot to add the blush, so here I'm just adding the blush for the final touch. If you enjoyed this tutorial and you want more videos on how to make cute felt keychains, plushies, and charms, let me know in the comments because I would love to make more of these for you guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!